Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. Today I wanted to talk to you just a little bit about the pros and cons of homeschool record keeping. Before I even start this video, I just wanted to say that if you want to leave a comment, you likely will not be able to hear. YouTube will probably have them disabled. So you can always follow me over on Instagram. The link is in the description box. Or you can come to my YouTube community tab and I will usually post a picture of the thumbnail for this video. And you can ask me any questions or make any comments that you have there. And I also ask that you would just like, share, and subscribe. So homeschool record keeping. This is something that not everyone in the U.S. has to do, although there are some states that require it. So if you are in one of those states that requires homeschool record keeping, this video probably isn't really going to be of much interest to you. Maybe it will be, but I am going to be talking about pros and cons. And unfortunately, if you have to do it, you're kind of stuck with it. But there are some people who just are weighing the options on whether they should do it, on what are the benefits of it. Are there any disadvantages of keeping homeschool record keeping? And so since I have done all types of homeschool record keeping, from the most basic to the most extensive, I thought that I would just go over some things that I have learned with you. So I'm going to start out with the benefits. I'm going to start out with the pros, those positive aspects of homeschool record keeping. So when you keep records of your homeschool, it really can give you a sense of accomplishment. When you have finished up that homeschooling day and you write down everything that your kids have done, especially if you are one of those checklist box checkers, this is definitely something that you're going to want to do. Whether you would just write down the basic subjects that they covered, or if you would do a more extensive record keeping where you actually write down specifically what it was that they did for each subject. That is entirely up to the individual, but it really does help once you know that your day is finished, you got all of the work done that you wanted to, you can write it down, you close the book, and you can move on with the rest of your day. Another benefit of homeschool record keeping is that it really can give you a better picture of just how much you've accomplished. How many times as homeschooling parents do we wake up in the middle of the night thinking to ourselves, am I doing enough? Am I ruining my kids' lives? How do I know that they're getting everything that they need to in their education? But here's the thing. First of all, I've said this in many other videos, and this isn't really the gist of this video today, but I'll just say it. There is no such thing as a perfect education. I just have to get that out of the way. But when you are keeping records of your homeschool, you will very often find that while you're thinking back in your head to what you did throughout the day, sometimes it seems like it might not be a whole lot, but when you actually write it down and read through it, sometimes you will be amazed at just all of the things that you have accomplished. I have found that I have done this so many other times that I thought to myself, wow, that should I count this only as like a half day because we really didn't do a whole lot. But then when I write it down, I look at it and I'm like, wow, we covered like 6 subject areas today. So yeah, it can really help with that. And I also have to add, when it comes to homeschool record keeping, you don't have to just use all of the structured work that you did with your kids. I used to write down things that my kids did throughout the day that weren't necessarily a part of our homeschool routine, but that I saw educational value in, like playing with Legos, or depending on their age, playing house, or if they would be outside jumping on the trampoline, that would be physical education. If they would be just watching, like a Brave Wilderness video on YouTube, that would be science. So keep that in mind as you are, jotting down the things that your kids have done. But yeah, sometimes you are going to be really excited when you see what your kids accomplished. It might be a lot more than what you actually thought. Another benefit is that it gives you memories. I love going back in my old I was going to say lesson plan books, but record books, my old homeschool record books. I actually used like the ones that you buy at Staples for teachers, and just paging through and reading through all of the things that we used to do. And I can read it and I can think to myself, I remember doing that unit study, or I remember when we did that. Or sometimes I might be able to look back, oh, we did cover that. I thought that we missed it. So, and yeah, down the line, this is something that your kids might even like as, just a little keepsake for their homeschooling years. And the last benefit that I'm going to talk to you about, and this doesn't mean this is the only benefits, it's just these are the ones that came right to my head today, is that you can actually keep a homeschool record book, and you can use that almost as a portfolio for your kids if it would be necessary for when they're entering college or trade school, maybe an internship or an apprenticeship. If you would combine maybe the record book and then maybe some of the samples of their work, a lot of colleges or a lot of apprenticeships might actually find a lot of interest in that, and that might be able to help open up the door for your kids. If they are able to see all of the work that they have actually been doing, they get a better picture. So now I'm going to move on to the cons of homeschool record keeping, the disadvantages. And I'm going to tell you, there's not a lot. There are only 2 that I could really think of, whereas I came up with 4 benefits. And really, they're not so much of a big deal. But here's what it is. So the first one is that when you are doing homeschool record keeping, it can be really easy to fall behind. If you have a day or 2 days or even 3 days where something comes up and you just don't get to write down all of your records in that book, it can really kind of set you back, because not only are you going to have to do all of that extra writing several days down the line, but you might not even remember all of the things that were actually done. Because even if you use a lesson plan book, remember how I was saying that there are a lot of things that kids do throughout the day that you might not have necessarily planned, but that are definitely worthy of being put in that record book. But if you forgot to do it, or if something came up, you might miss a lot of that stuff. And so the only other con that I could come up with is just that it's time consuming, especially if you have a large family. And this was really the biggest thing for me, because sometimes at the end of each night, I would sit and it would take me 2 hours to write down everything, like all of the records of what we did. And this was when I was doing the really extensive homeschool record keeping, where I was writing down what they did for every single subject. And even like, say if they would do something that would cover 2 subject areas, like say if they were learning about Thomas Edison, I would write down, like for science, I would write read Thomas Edison biography. And then for history too, I would write it again, read Thomas Edison biography, because I wanted to make sure that I was actually writing down all of the subjects that were being covered for each topic. You know, I didn't want to take away from the stuff that the kids were learning. But yeah, it really did turn out to be time consuming. And that was really the biggest disadvantage for me, was because I felt like sometimes it was taking me longer to write things down in the record book than it was actually taking to homeschool my kids. So really, this is just one of those things where just do what you prefer. If you are living in a state that does not require it, that is, that's really important. If you are living in a state that requires record keeping, then yeah, you have to do it. But if you live in one of those states that is low regulation or no regulation and doesn't really say much about homeschool record keeping, and if it's just something that you're playing around with the idea, these are just some things that I learned from doing it, and I hope that they helped you out. And that's all that I have for you today. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram, because, as I said, YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.